Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is going to be one, I think, of very many AI panels. It's a hot topic. I think everybody's trying to figure out how to navigate it, how to use it better, how to be literate, and also just up their game, right? Because I feel everyone in whatever line of business they're in should be adopting AI in some shape, way, or form. We have an incredible handpicked panel today. And I'll just do little high levels of them, which you guys might have seen when you signed up. So we have Raman, who is an award winning AI product and deployment lead advisor for Fortune 100 teams and early stage founders. She's worked mainly in AI adoption, enterprise go to market, and moving AI from pilot to production. She was formerly at PwC and Google. She helped scale one of the world's largest Gen AI programs to 200,000 plus people. And she's UK's top 100 influential female tech leader and UN Women UK delegate. Welcome, Raman. We also have Benjamin Torres from Versailles Labs. He's building infrastructure that keeps agentic systems reliable. So when AI agents act on broken data, the consequences are real. And if you want to chat to Benjamin, we'll be popping in everybody's links. If you guys want to have some one-on-one time, we'll definitely have 15 minutes of Q&A at the end. If you do want to get a little bit deeper where it's more focused on your business, highly recommend booking 15, 30-minute, 45-minute call with these guys. Next, we have Jay Lee. He's a serial entrepreneur, ex-Samsung Group technology leader, and hands-on AI agent builder. He has built and launched AI agent MCP, RAG, and agentic workflow systems across ERP. A lot of acronyms that we're probably going to be speaking about today. Public data, facilities management, logistics, travel, telehealth, and public sector services. Welcome, Jay. So happy to have you. And then last but not least, we have David in my favorite country in the world, Georgia. He's a serial entrepreneur, angel investor, and business mentor with a portfolio of 8 startups across AI, agritech, and more. He mentors founders through Founder Institute, 2080 Ventures, Axel Business Angel Network, and he's currently building Tender Compass, the first AI native tender aggregator in the Caucasus and Central Asia region. And he's a contributor to Forbes Georgia. Welcome, you guys. Super, super excited about this panel. We have some really heavy hitters in the room. So make sure that you pop in your questions. Sasha will be my right hand woman, kind of fielding off those questions last 15 minutes. So make sure you pop those in and we'll get to them at the end. We would love to kick off the conversation and start with Raman. Story time. How did you get into AI? And yeah, background, anything that I didn't say.
Amazing. Yeah, happy to. First and foremost, welcome everyone. It's so exciting to see so many different people from around the world join for a really important question, and also just a really exciting panel. So, my journey is very unconventional, and I'm sure it is for many others. But I actually came into the AI and AI agent space from very two different angles. So, the first is I actually studied philosophy. I didn't come from a computer science background. And in fact, I actually studied the moral and ethical dilemmas around AI about almost 10 years ago. So that's what really made me curious about the relationship between humans and technology and how do we build things ethically and right for the rest of humanity. Then professionally, I worked in an AI lab in a big corporate company. And that's where I was originally a product manager. So I was running a team of 50 people and building end to end SaaS products for the Fortune 100 organizations. And that's where I started to do a lot of work in kind of working with models. So whether it was training models, evaluating models, deploying models, that's kind of where I got like my first kind of hands-on experience. And this was specifically in kind of the workforce productivity, HR space. And I kind of put that under the umbrella of future of work. And that's where it really became real. I think that's where I moved from kind of the theory of how kind of AI works in society to then actually the real application when you're doing it from a business sense. And I would say those two parts were very different. I think when it was more hands on, we weren't really asking those bigger questions. It was just trying to think about how do we solve a human problem and how can we work more quickly and how do we also make money from it. I think now a lot of the conversation, given that AI is so huge, is more around how do we ensure that we're doing the right thing. So it was a combination of the ethics plus that practical implementation part that really pulled me into the AI world.
Yeah, and I think that that's what ethics is what everybody now is leaning into after seeing where we're going. Awesome. Great lead in to Benjamin.
That's a tough act to follow. Hello, everyone. So let's see, my journey into AI probably started through the old math and science route. We started looking at infrastructure years ago as the backbone to any kind of emerging technology that was going to be built on it. And really, we were looking into more neuromorphic computing and quantum computing as a long-term strategy, um, and realized that we were never going to be able to make that jump until we fixed some current issues. So I'm kind of starting in the middle because Raman did such a great job at laying the foundation. So we focus on what everything, all the intelligence sectors, all the software, all the application and database layers are built on, the foundation of it, to make sure that the structure underneath can hold everything that's being built on top of it. And of course, it's just as scary and even scarier because most people don't focus on that. And I think Jay can speak to that, having been an engineer for so long. Usually only engineers get focused on structure and infrastructure. So it's been an interesting path. And as soon as you start adding the type of progression that's happening in computing and the speed that's happening in computing, and you try to put that on old infrastructure, things start to collapse. And you can read that every single day in the news. There's a news story, Uber, AWS, NVIDIA, they all have some type of crash happening every single day, some type of problem happening, some kind of agent going off realms. And most of the time, it has to do because nobody built the infrastructure and mapped the infrastructure. So that's what we focus on, is so that by the time you start building something, you can actually trust that it can hold, and you can trust the systems that it's sitting on top of. I'll just leave it there for now.
Yeah, yeah. And Jay?
Thank you, Kath. I just have to put some selfish plug here. Anybody who's interested in checking out how AI can help stop your system failures, please check out getdatawell.com, which is led by Benjamin. For sure, you would benefit from just checking out his website. So from my end, my journey started with means of consumption, which transition over to means of production. What I mean by that is, so my background is engineering, which doesn't really mean that much, but I started as a data engineer. Also had a lot of projects on the client side, for brands such as L'Oreal and also, for example, like 3M, and brands and products like Post-it. So I used to deliver solutions that I need to somehow analyze existing data and then provide a better solution that was data driven. And that's the means of consumption, which kind of started with the data points. And later, I realized that to provide a better solution and to provide a sustainable solution and also something that's scalable, it just naturally changed into a means of production where there's got to be somehow, some way that data engineering does not have to be just brute force manual or just based on logic that is static. So for me, it was very, I would say, fortunate and blessed to have clients, global clients, which kind of forced me to think out of the box. So I have to say that it was through actual enterprise customers that I was kind of given the opportunity to switch over to be more AI driven.
Awesome. And then last but not least, David.
I'm so grateful. Thanks a lot, guys, for this opportunity. Amazing people, amazing panelists, super experienced professional. My first encounter was in movie of Matrix. I'm sure you all have seen the agents with sunglasses into the Matrix. That was my first encounter of AI, and how Neo is dealing with those guys when I was, I don't know which age, but was probably really young. But seriously, okay. My background is in IT. I was working 10 years there, but last 10 years I was in the business, like hands-on, starting from zero some stuff and creating the company. So Encounter was seriously from the entrepreneur's perspective. So we were like, okay, we need efficiency. We have many companies. I'm investing. So we are like really much in need of efficiency. And first, it started like philosophical talks with ChatGPT, you know. why do we exist? Why do you exist? You know, and then I remember there was time when I was shouting to my ChatGPT for being too biased. But then, you know, then when Claude code started to like really become smarter and smarter, and then command line, and now currently like our operation is basically AI day and nights, agentic approaches, orchestration, and it's everywhere. Like just now before we started, I built small lead generation for one of my companies. We want to start exporting. So it's like really hands-on practical usually. And in my case, it's not really deeper engineering. Let's put it that way.
Awesome. Great context, you guys. I think just with the people we have in the room, we can get kicked off with a few questions that we've gotten. So first one, and you guys kind of already mentioned how you got into building AI agents. So what problem were you guys trying to solve for when you first started building or even advising in this space? And Raman, would love to start with you.
Yeah, great question. I guess when it comes to building anything, whether it's AI, a company, a problem you're solving at work, it always starts with just a human problem that you're seeing day in, day out. And then it's understanding, is AI a part of that solution or not? So when I first started building in the space, it was when I was in my corporate job in that AI lab. And essentially there were kind of I'd say there was like three avenues. So the first was we were doing some really cool, I was working on a very, very cool app. Think of Duolingo, like an app similar to Duolingo. And we got to use AI as part of the algorithm to help match people to specific things. Maybe Duolingo probably isn't a good example. Maybe it's like a dating app like Hinge or something where you can swipe and you can find all the appropriate people. That was a really cool application way of using AI when I first started, because one, we were solving for a problem that I actually understood. Two, it was really done in a really fun, engaging way because I got to work with designers and machine learning engineers and data scientists. And I got to see how this like really technical, hard parts of AI could actually be used in a front end way. And the reason why I say that is because the second way in which we also used AI was more technical. So it was more around how do we, digest data? How do we ensure that all the amount of data that we have in our company, how can we bring it all together? How do we summarize it? How do we have it in one place so that people can find the specific data that they're looking for? And what that one was is in my previous job, we created the UK's first audit LLM. So what that means is it was essentially a digital assistant that auditors and accounting people could use to find information in basically the accounting Bible. And this accounting Bible is massive. It has loads and loads and loads of pages. and they essentially use Bibles that are global and also UK standard. So we used AI as a way, and it's essentially we used a RAG pipeline, which we can talk a little bit about, but it's a way where you create a pipeline that you can go find the information you need in your database, and a chatbot can then bring back that answer to you when you ask a question. So I think those first two were the main applications of where it started. So it was more solving human problems, one in kind of like a really fun front end data app, and then second in more of a data indigestion way. And I think the third one, which I would say is what we're seeing more of today, and I think is mainly where most use cases sit, it's genuinely in just very repetitive manual tasks that are just not very fun or very interesting. So a lot of the projects that I've worked on have involved in how do we use AI to help streamline processes that essentially take up a lot of human time. So that would be in how do we draft emails, draft documentations. I'm sure we're doing all of this now with all of the apps that we've got at the moment. But 5 years ago, those tools didn't exist. So we'd have to build those manually. So anything that requires something that's really repetitive, something you do daily and constantly, but might not be fun, but is still rewarding and can still bring a business a lot of value, that is kind of where we've seen AI be used. So anywhere that can remove that friction from the beginning.
Yeah, for me, it was research. We have an R&D lab. That's how we label ourselves at Versailles Labs. My partner's a scientist, and I work with several scientists. And when we're trying to validate a thesis or research a particular subject around statistical mathematics or machine learning, there's just tons and tons of data to go through. There's probably been 1 million pages published on the topic over the last 40, 50 years. And it was just exhausting. First of all, trying to find them and then pulling out the one paragraph that was relevant. So being able to build an agent early on that was able to do acute research for us and bring back what we needed and kind of attribute and cite all the work to the original papers so that we could keep track of stuff became like the first use case, which saved me an incredible amount of time because I used to spend about 4 or 5 hours a day on research. Now I can do it in about 45 minutes. And I can do a lot more research than I could before. And then the second use case, I think David just mentioned it, is all lead gen and copywriting, because, I'd rather be in the lab than on social media. So that became an easy entry point to kind of learn how an agent could be useful in those cases. Jay?
So the project that I can remember now, how I got started was there was a brand who had a problem statement, and they wanted to identify a micro influencer, like up and coming, not like a public figure who's already well known, such as Thierry Henry, one of the best goal scorer of the best damn team in the universe now. But they actually wanted to identify who is the rising star that represented, who spoke their brand language. And this brand in particular had like a product line of 200 micro brands. And one of the micro brands was, I think was like a Mac, MAC. And for somebody like Jay, a Mac means a notebook, a hardware, a piece of computer device, not like a cosmetic brand. So in this case, I had to solve the problem using some kind of solution that have cognitive intelligence that was data driven, but also decision aligned using the cognitive intelligence, which you have to make decision for n number of content or user profiles that was probably available. So as I briefly mentioned at the beginning of my introduction, I think I was very blessed to be faced with clients with real actual brand problems or business problems where they need to solve, where it wasn't just something that you can solve with money or some budget. You had to kind of identify something with intelligence and data driven. So in my case, it has been very enterprise driven.
I think Jay is trying to start the football wars here, and I'm sure he's courageous, but be careful, man. Yeah, so my encounter, I think it was a research, very, very general, just a research. First time I saw, I don't remember which LLM, but it defined like 500 sources where the research will go. And I was like, 500 sources, just to read 500 sources is like huge effort. But then it evolved in many directions, and basically one of the big things and the last things that I was doing is I was trying to solve my own social media posting issue, basically to somehow have this swarm of agents who are like all the time collecting the news, analyzing, I don't know, looking at the trends, then posting, then reanalyzing the strategies, and again. And to be honest, that worked really, really good. I was like impressed with the work that it does. And this was my first complete, let's say, independent machine of the agents orchestrated that was autonomously working. And that was my, let's say, highlight of the story.
Yeah, and I feel like we have some founders. I saw a question come in, and it seems like they're educated on the AI side and they know the acronyms and potentially things that you need to know when you are trickling into AI. But what type of vocabulary do you wish more founders understood before starting? So, any acronyms, anything that comes to mind? And Raman, we can kick this off with you.
Yeah, I'll keep this one short. My favorite is always RAG. And I know I mentioned that earlier, and it was also said in the chat box. So, what is RAG? I think RAG is like 101 AI agent, but it's essentially, it means retrieval augmented generation. So, what that means is how can you give your agent access to your knowledge base? So, when we say knowledge base, we mean your data, your documents, everything that you have in terms of all your information. How do we give an agent access to that rather than just the model that it was trained on? So, an example of this is, and I mentioned it already. So, when we built this audit chatbot in my previous job, an auditor would go in and ask a question. I don't know, a question could be, hi, what's the audit standards in the UK? Yes, the internet can go and find that information, but some information is really specific that you can't find online. Perhaps it's in your writing notes, perhaps it's in a specific Bible. What a RAG pipeline does is when you answer your question in the background, it will go to your knowledge base, it will go through all the different content, and it will find similar answers to what you're looking for, and then the LLM will be able to write that answer back to you. I'm going to just stick with RAG for now, but I think RAG is a really important one, terminology to understand, two, to understand how the process works, because a lot of the tools that you're using, whether it's agent based or not, is potentially using a retrieval process to go get your information. And the reason why I say it's really important is because when you are building your own software or your own tools, whether they're low code or whether you are coding, RAG is the process that you will potentially be following to make sure that the answers you're getting are accurate. And then this kind of feeds into the wider conversations that we have around bias, etc. But I won't go into too much detail, but that would be the one word for me.
Yeah, I feel like this is a landmine for me. AI has become like a very general branded term that covers about 12 or 12 to 15 different disciplines, from decision intelligence, causal intelligence, actual artificial intelligence. But I think if we're just talking about agents, the main thing everyone should keep in mind is the difference between a bot, which follows a script, has no thinking, an AI assistant, which just kind of answers questions, but you still decide. An agent is a program that decides and acts on its own. You give it the capacity to act on its own. And a multi-agent system is obviously agents working together, coordinated together. Um, and then the one word I'll drop in there that everybody should be thinking about moving forward is context or contextual memory, which is probably the most critical piece of you not wanting to shoot yourself in the head every day you're talking to your agent and having to repeat yourself over and over again. And I'm sure we'll get into that later, but that's probably a term that you'll be hearing over the next few months people talk about a lot about. But those of us who work in this on a daily basis, and those of you who already are working in the space, you know how critical that is.
All amazing insights. So from my humble opinion, I wish more founders understood the difference between automation, augmentation, and agency. I also think we should have a better understanding of context, memory, as Benjamin just mentioned, and tool use, retrieval, which Raman also mentioned, evaluation, and last but not least, human in the loop. So these words sound kind of technical, but they're really the core operating concepts of AI. So I think these jargons and vocabularies would do justice for any founder or operator to decide how and what AI should see, remember, decide, and improve. So again, it's the difference between automation, augmentation, and agency is quite important from my humble opinion.
I wanted to say human in the loop. But yeah, amazing comments, guys. I think memory, I think, Benjamin, is still a challenge for agentic AI, basically, because all the time you want to, if you want to invoke something, so basically you need to somehow provide all the context again and again. And now I think there are a couple of really promising startups that are working on that problem to somehow solve it and to make this. Okay, file-based memories, which could be the MD files that usually are like in the folders that AI is working, I think is not really reliable means of the memory, definitely. Human in the loop for me, and this is a term nowadays for the AI that everyone is talking about, and I think humans, we are more important, at least that's what we are thinking so far, before super intelligence will come and terminators will take over our lives. So we still think that we're the most important, and I still believe in that. So human in the loop. And since no one mentioned Model Context Protocol, MCP, so this is created by Anthropic. It's an open standard that allows AI models to securely connect to the external tools and databases and so on. So I think, yes, you all know that I love Hollywood blockbusters. And I think, and when we are screening, for example, some kind of startups, and we usually do with Axel, one of the first questions is like, why don't you have MCP server already like on your MVP? Because I believe that agentic AI is the future that is really changing a lot. So there should be the data in everything, and there should be the way to communicate this data somehow structurally to the agents. And I think MCP is, more or less, is giving this opportunity to the world.
Yeah, and gosh, we have a load of questions that I want to ask first, but I know that it's important also to give a good foundation of, and you guys kind of mentioned this and touched upon it, but the difference between automation, an AI tool, and agentic systems, how they work, any insight on that? And Raman can kick this off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Benjamin did a really good, quick definition of each of them. So I'm just kind of happy to kind of go in and maybe share a little bit about what my favorite tools are. So as Benjamin mentioned, this is where the confusion lies. And I think people just kind of bundle them all together. So the way I view it is that an automation is rule based. So it's basically if this happens, then do that. So an example of when I use automation is that I use it for many different things. So I use automation more for Excel sheets when I need to punch numbers into my Excel for different things. So let's say I'm doing like financial expenses or budgeting. What I can do is, let's say I've got numbers in one sheet, like in one document, but I want it in my Excel. I can create a workflow so that my numbers go from here to here. That's it. So, and then there's a rule that I've put in, like every time a number goes into document A, make sure it goes into Excel B. And that's it. Very predictable. It doesn't do anything more than that. It's very, very simple. Something that is like, so that's kind of like automation. The way that I view agents is that it goes a step further. This is where it's making decisions more dynamically across multiple steps. I could have used the Excel sheet as a similar example to this, but one where I've tried to use it, but it's not the best for me, and I can talk a little bit about that, is actually with LinkedIn. So you probably can see there's a lot of like AI generated content on LinkedIn. You can tell because a lot of the content is written in the same way, or we know that AI creates a lot of those M dashes. So one way that you can use an AI agent for LinkedIn is you can use agents to help brainstorm ideas for you and create your content. So an automation could be, in this example, I could create an automation to say that every time ideas get put into my document A, I want you to create a LinkedIn post about it. But then again, it's still a rule, like take this content, then create something out of it. Where an agent can get involved is I could say, based on these ideas that I have, can you go away, research, look on the web, look at the latest trends, based on everything you know about me, can you now create content in the writing style that I prefer? The difference here is the agent is going to go away and it's going to create decisions and have multiple steps that will be adapted based on new information. So all I'm telling my agent is, hi, I like to write LinkedIn content on AI in the future of workspace, and I'm based in the UK. Now, can you go off and create 10 LinkedIn posts for me? That's when an agent gets involved. So the way that I view kind of automation and an agent is an automation follows rules and agents operate based on outcomes. And then where tools come in, so for example, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, those tools are helping us to do either one of those. One tool I really want to give a shout out to, and it's just such a shameless plug, is when I was trying to get more into the space of agent building and I went down the technical avenues of using Claude Code, etc. I really like this product called Mind Studio. They're no code, low code. They're essentially a Google Chrome extension on your web browser. And what it can do is it can access all your tabs. And if you use Mind Studio, you can basically create either automations or agentic workflows really easy, really simply. The only thing you need to do is just make sure that you've got your data all in the right place. So whether it's like you want to create a LinkedIn agent, just make sure you've got a document of all the examples of how you've written your LinkedIn content before. Or if you want to do some number crunching on an Excel sheet, make sure you've got, previous examples of those Excel sheets. You can essentially just plug them into Mind Studio and then it can create those workflows for you really easily. I would say that this is more for beginners and non-technical people who just want to get started on agentic flows, but don't really want to delve deep into the technical. But that's my take. I'm really curious to hear what Benjamin has to say.
I think you did a great recap. I don't have anything to add. Jay will have something to add.
She definitely killed it.
Thank you for passing over the baton. So yeah, I mean, I have to completely agree with Raman's definitions. Automation definitely follows a fixed path. AI tool for me, coming from more engineering side, we call these tools within the MCP that was mentioned also before. And these tools are also very important tools in the ecosystem of AI. It's not just ChatGPT as a tool, it's more of an application, but tools such as I have a MCP that I've developed for the Korean Tourism Board, for example, and I've open sourced it. And this MCP has multiple different tools. It searches very popular places to visit in Korea, for example, or it can extract addresses and create like a Google Maps link specific to the address that is available in the data set. So these are also tool sets within a module called MCP. So tools are also very important. An agentic system is more about coordination of context, tools, and memory, as Benjamin mentioned. But more importantly, it's about decisions across the workflow. And in my case, I would say I have I love to create skills. Skill is a feature that you can actually create on your own. And out of the box, it does exist. And a lot of these agentic apps out there, such as not Claude Code, Manus AI, ChatGPT, you can also create a bit of your own persona as like a skill. And with these skills, you kind of automate a very specific repetitive kind of functions. For example, I have a personal assistant skill that I've created for myself. And what it does is whenever there is a overcast, and my personal assistant would automatically block out at least an hour in my calendar if there is an event that is in a physical location, not like an online meeting, so that nobody can kind of come into my calendar and say, hey, like I gotta meet you and I'm gonna book you for within the next 30 minutes or 15 minutes or so. So I have very specific skills that I've created in a situation like this. And this is automation, where it's a rule base, to Raman's point, and it's a fixed path. In terms of tools, these little things that actually search for itself to make it more capable are the tool sets that I was referring to. And the agents, it's more about the decisions, whereas AI would actually would make a decision on your behalf with all the references and the tool sets that you are providing it with. So that's how I would say organize it.
Yeah, and then there are the people who are sending you the event invites, and then there is a link, but it's a physical meeting, and then your calendar is, you know, because I had this many times, and it's terrible to be honest. My definition of agentic would be what drives it. So agentic AI is goal driven. So basically, you set up the goal, what needs to be achieved, and this is not like a if this then that, as Raman already described very good. This is more of the decisions and more goal driven to achieve the goal. Like you need to decide some stuff, go do the research, I don't know, do something, and then come back. So that would be my let's say definition of agentic.
Yeah. And I think the next kind of stepping stone into what we're seeing today is, where do you guys see the most value being delivered through AI agents? And then I have a follow-up question on that one. Raman.
Happy to kick things off. Yeah. I'll keep this one short because I'm curious to hear what others have to say on the panel. And I think I've also alluded to some of this in my previous work. So I feel like we're in this stage of where most people, okay, so when I say most people, even though 16% of the world are using AI, within that 16% of people, I feel like most people are still in the kind of using it for really repetitive daily tasks that I mentioned already. So whether it's like, you know, help me use agents to create LinkedIn content, create social media content, generate code. We're kind of here still. We're still in the kind of in the lower stage, and I think there's so much more that we can still get to. Where I'm seeing where more enterprises are is they're using agents now in customer support. So I'm not sure if you've ever like taken a phone call. Actually, I had this last night. Called up a hotel for a late check-in. It was 2 a.m. I was met with an agent. Couldn't tell because the voice was so good, but I noticed with the long pauses, I was like, wait, I'm being met with an agent, which is the last thing I want at 2 a.m. But we're seeing a lot there, and more from a business standpoint, is this relationship between, you know, a customer and a business. And then we're getting to this, you know, the funnel at the top, right? And I don't know if we've heard of, you know, people running companies where there's only one employee and everything's an agent. I have questions about that, and I don't know if it's feasible, but this is the kind of triangle that I'm seeing at the moment. At the bottom, this is where most of it's happening, that kind of email management, knowledge search, content creation. Then we're going up to the business element where we're seeing it in customer support, potentially in sales and R&D, like Benjamin mentioned. And then we're getting to the top part where we're seeing people, a very few, trying to use automation and autonomous agents across their entire business. But I'm gonna keep it quite basic, and I'm curious to hear what others have to say of whether they fit in that pyramid or if they're seeing something different.
Yeah, I like the pyramid analogy. And I do think that there are companies that are single founder, single human in the loop with 20, 40, 100, 200 agents. And I think that's possible, like in e-commerce and certain verticals, but other verticals, completely impossible. Like if you want a trustworthy brand and you're building something of consequence, I don't think that's going to hold, at least not yet. Going backwards, I would double down on what Raman said. Where agents deliver the most value today is anything repetitive with clear inputs and outputs, right? Think of it this way. I think over time, we've created are products and emerging technology that helps take boring stuff off of our plate so that we can go experience life the way we want to experience it. And AI and agents is no different. There's certain things people don't want to do at work. There's certain things people don't want to do at home. And they're willing to pay somebody or something or build something to take that away from them, right? You want more time at the place you want to go to. So you invented from the horse to the car to the plane to teleportation, right? Less time traveling so I can spend time in the place that I want to be in. So agents have that context, right? For me, it was research, lead gen, copywriting, even graphics. Like I started doing graphics when I was 16, 17 years old, which is decades ago. I've gone through every single version of software from the beta through whatever versions they are today. And for me to plug in a prompt and 3 seconds to 3 minutes later get this amazing graphic and it's still mind-blowing, even though I've been doing it for years now, using different things. It just gets better, and it impresses, right? So with agents, we're at the very beginning, right? We're at that alpha stage. I don't even think we're at beta yet. So what I always say is focus on building something that you know what you want the outcome to be, right? It's your experience. Just create a mini-me, create a digital twin of yourself. This is the process that I do, and this is what I know works. So I can write an SOP, I can write a document and a framework for this agent where I know what the result has to be. And the more you build those in whatever platform you choose, there's a lot of great platforms, but they all use one of 4 or 5 LLMs, right? It always goes back to the same brain at the end of the day. Just keep building, keep trying, keep iterating, keep training, and just remember you're training a child. Don't give the child the keys to your car. Don't give it permissions, but just keep trying, keep building. And that's what will bring value to you is the experience, because all of a sudden it will click for you and it will click for your agents. And then that consensus will be so much fun. I can guarantee you it'll be a lot of fun when you get agents that actually work. It's a pretty cool thing to experience.
Thank you, guys. Allow me to take a jab from a different angle because I don't want to be repeating what you guys said, and I wouldn't change a thing. So there's a trend that I've been observing, related to this question that Kat mentioned. I think it's also similar in parallel to how social media kind of came into play, let's say when it took off in the early 2000s. There was a point around 2010 where the general population of social media users were feeling fatigue because there are so many social media apps out there, even already around 2010. And then what came about in the market was there were aggregators, like Flipboard, for example. We still have some of these aggregators in terms of production and in terms of posting, but there was a bit of trend in terms of aggregating everything to a single place. Now, how does this relate to the question that Kat was mentioning is even though social media, Web 2.0 kind of application versus agentic experience, which is quite different, I think we have to remember the value proposition, the value chain itself, because nobody's going to make another Anthropic Claude, for example, the same way they can right now. And that will be kind of foolish from my humble opinion. And all these agents that I see that is growing and ever more endlessly growing is going to be even more dependent on its tools and especially connectivity. Because what is an agent? Agent is something that does something for you. It's not generating something for you. Generation is the concept of Gen AI because the foundation model that we are used to or using as of now is programmed to just give you a result no matter what. It's going to generate something for you, whether it's wrong or correct or delusional, whatever it may be. But agent is something that actually does a task for you through generation. So how can an agent do a job for you on your behalf? It needs to have capabilities. It needs to have tool sets. And also it needs to have accessibility and also functions that a language model does not have, which is such as what HubSpot does as a CRM, what Salesforce does, or what a Google search does. That's why you have so-called these connectors within the apps that are widely used within the public agent apps, such as Claude or even ChatGPT. For those who have already been using connectors, I think it would be interesting to see on the comment if you guys also value those connectors and how much you value them. But from my point of view, I think the agent's dependency on these connectors and connectivity to what's already in the market and the space of this software world is going to be even much more important because that's where the value lies. There's only so much you can do just be an agent living on top of a foundation model because if all you're doing is generating content in natural language, that's not really agentic from my point of view. That's why I believe this connectivity within the value chain that already exists in our lives, in our professional and personal lives, I think that's the really key.
Yes, and I'll try to continue just topic. I think data is becoming more and more important as well because all these things need to run on data. So if there is no structured data, there is no point of the agents because they need structured data. I'll try to a bit respond on the chat. Here is my favorite tool that I'm using for the orchestrating the agents. And this is dedicated to Kevin when he wants to celebrate a single unicorn startup together with the bots. So Paperclip is actually the platform where you are hiring CEO, which is based on the LLM of your choice. And then this CEO is hiring another agents, which are also based on any LLM. And then you just set up the goals, sub goals, and then you are just a single board member who is just approving high level decisions. And then it does not work as it should be, but it's really fun. I would say it's open source, so you can download. Be careful with the keys, as Benjamin already mentioned, not to give the keys to this particular, let's say, game. But what I can say on the value, I think the highest value today for agentic is where the work is well defined. And it can be like 80% right and fast rather than 100% right and slow, I would put it that way. So basically, if you want to do some things fast and it's not really needed to be like 100% true, you are not, I don't know, taking care of the patients or making really like life-saving decisions that needs like 100% accuracy. And also responsibility, which is another topic to discuss, I think, for agents, because now we see a lot of policymakers are really, really, regulating. And it has a point, of course, because at least we need to know who is responsible for what, and how can we jail a agent at the end. It's impossible, but I think that really shapes the whole thing. So guys, play with paperclip. Give me comments whenever you play. What do you see there?
Can I add to that real quick?
Yeah, of course.
So Paperclip is my favorite operating system for agents because it was built by a COO, and I've been a COO for 3 decades. So it's really great. But just a quick tip, I only give agents one job and one job only. And all they do is perform that and come back, perform that and come back. I recommend when you're getting started, don't create an agent to do 2 or 3 things. Don't let them see into the other cookie jar. Just keep them focused. It sounds mean, and it is. But just keep them highly, highly focused. And Paperclip does a great job at that and does an amazing job at bringing back the permissions to the CEO, which is you. But it can operate a multi-agent system really well for you.
Yeah, love that. And so if for a first founder, and this kind of goes off of what Kevin had mentioned, but for practical first project, and a founder who wants to experiment with agents, what do you guys recommend?
I think we
Okay,
already sent the recommendation.
yeah, I think Benjamin summarized that really well. Yeah, I think from my own experience and kind of what I've seen working with founders day in, day out, I think a lot of it is really dependent on how technically savvy you are. I think plays a really big role. 2, how much patience you have to go back and forth when the agent will mess up. And 3, how much money you have because it's also expensive. You don't realize that when you're using these tools, you're like racking up $200 a month, right? Which is great for some people, but for some others, depending on where you are in the world, it can be really expensive. And every time you run an agentic workflow and it gets it wrong, that also costs pennies as well. So those would be my first 3 things just to be mindful of. But I would definitely say, as Benjamin mentioned, start somewhere small, start somewhere simple, rather than diving straight into the hardest problem that is in your business. Why don't we take a look at something that's really small and repetitive that you want to do over and over again? I know perhaps I take more of a conservative approach. Maybe that's the European side to me, but I would just say start with like emails, start with something so basic that you understand how it works. Like you understand like the writing style, you understand, the different people you might want to email. There might be this automation or an agentic thing that you need it to do. Yeah, start somewhere really, really simple, really, really small, and do that by testing out maybe 2 or 3 different platforms. So Paperclip seems like a great one. I also mentioned Mind Studio, which I think is for if you're not very technically savvy. Start there and find the platform that you like. Find the platform that you feel most comfortable with. That you feel like, yeah, moving forward, perhaps either the 2, 3 tools I wanna use. That would be my take. But curious to hear what some other people have to say.
I completely second what you said, Raman. Sorry, Benjamin.
Go ahead, Jen.
So just to echo what you said, I would personally recommend keeping it really super duper personal because not every world problem is something that we have to or I have to solve using agentic workflows. And to make it really meaningful, to Raman's point, you have to be very cautious and conscious of why you're doing it for what reason, what purpose, and do you have an angle? And one specific, I would say, advice that I'd like to share to everyone is, which I also keep reminding myself, um, you actually don't need to have a big infrastructure. And many times you actually don't even need to pay any of these public SaaS AI apps out there to actually even build something on your own. There are so much open source options and tool sets out there. And it doesn't even require a lot of technicality or a software engineering background that with something so personal, something so simple, to Benjamin's point and also Raman's point, which is beautifully said and laid out. I think that's the core pillar. Like, do you have an angle? If your angle is very clear, there's got to be enough tool sets and toolkits out there that you should be able to, anybody should be able to create a working prototype or even an agentic workflow or even an agent for that matter. So I'll definitely emphasize on the simplicity and just keep things at bay because there's enough resources out there. Sorry, Benjamin, back to you.
All good. So I'm going to take the underlying part of this question because I think this is really critical for everyone to capture. There's one document in agents that a lot of times doesn't get exposed to you personally unless you're using something like Paperclip. But if you're using something like Trigify or MindStudio, you may not see this. But find it and study it, pull it up on your LLM. It's the soul.md document. So the soul document is the operating system, the heart of your agent. It's the set of instructions that gives it a reason for existence. So you have a set of instructions which are either in a Claude.md file or an SOP.md. There's some file, whether you're doing it yourself or somebody's doing it for you, you're inside of a platform. There's a document that's written that tells the agent the instructions of what to do. It's an instruction document. There's a second document that's the soul.md, which tells it how to behave and why it exists. Most people kind of ignore that piece of it. For me, that's the most important piece of all my architecture. Every one of my agents has an SOP. I treat it just like I've treated all the companies I've built, all the employees I've onboarded, over 3,000 employees. It's like I onboard them over a 90-day period. Well, it takes me about 90 minutes to onboard an agent because I write their SOPs, their KPIs, their OKR, their soul document. And then I start testing them. The first 90 days, I am testing them to see what they can do, what they can manage, how they react, the LLM that they're operating on, how that helps or hurts what they're doing. But that's what I would encourage is to learn that. That's probably like, Agents 102, but really, really important early on to tap into that because that really helps.
Yeah, and I think we are inventing new religion, agentic religion, with soul MDs and their souls, and yeah, that's really funny. And same time, it's very important, as you already mentioned. And it was a very good point from Raman as well about how it depends on how tech savvy you are. So my recommendation was, yeah, it's open source, but you still need some machine, some hardware for it to spin it up. So most probably you're gonna need some technical skills for it. Of course, it's not that hard, but anyways. And I think first of all, you need to assess that. If you are even more tech savvy, I just send dropped another link, which is Mirofish, which is another great tool for agentic AI. And I want to also answer one question that was in the chat: when to avoid AI agents? Munib, thanks a lot for that question. I think that's a really good question because, as already was covered, you might not always need the agents, and these are expensive to run because these are mini token eaters usually, because they need to be invoked. So, which means that they need to be woken up. Then they need to read the context usually, and these are soul MD or any other MD files they need to read on each run, and then during that runs, they are usually digesting a lot of tokens. So most probably it's not a good idea to run it when you are low on the budget or you are just exploring. Or at least my advice to you is to start with, let's say, less expensive models for the agents for the beginning. So which might be, I don't know, in Claude's case, maybe Haiku models, in GPT space, ChatGPT space, I don't know which ones, but lower ones, lower tier models to waste less of your money, because majority of the tokens that agents are using are wasted tokens, so-called, let's say, that can be cached, but it's impossible to cache yet. And now more and more operators are rolling out. For example, I think Gemini has already some kind of caching mechanisms for the repetitive, let's say, tokens that you are inputting, and then you might efficiently waste your tokens on it. But yeah, I think I answered. I'll switch to another question if I not.
Yeah.
But I think I'm covered.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we would like to wrap up. Want to be mindful of everybody's time. I know it's events going on and people are across the world, but if you do want to book with any of these guys, we can pop their links back in the chat, so have a look there. We'll be sending out a follow-up email with all the insights from the call and a few of the plugs that the panelists mentioned. If you have any questions for them, you can always book a call. Connect with them on LinkedIn as well. They have great thought leadership content that they're always posting about. Highly recommend following all of them. And if you guys need anything on Hubble side, please feel free to reach out to Sasha or I. Thank you again, Raman, Jay, David, Benjamin. You guys were an incredible panel. I know that we're going to have a few more of these coming up, more on the workshop side, and also kind of how to build, when to build, what to build. So stay tuned for that. Make sure that you subscribe to our Luma calendar. We're always posting new educational events with partners and our own events. So thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Amazing. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.